welcome to lesson one of the Zero to Hero, the Rise of Agents. I try to get creative with these names to catch your attention, but we are at the verge of a major change in our market. And we talked about it, I believe, a year or so ago with the rise of Gen AI and the impact that it had in the way that we perform our jobs. But with the growth in use of agents in I thought that it would be beneficial for us to learn a bit more about it. Okay, so this is the intent of this particular mentorship. We are going for roughly 12 weeks from today until almost the end of March. Okay, and the goal is to go through Agentic AI. So we're gonna have a view of what it is at first. Then we're gonna take a look at prompt engineering a bit more next week. And by the way, next week is the only week that we are not going to host this class on a Thursday. We're gonna shift it to Wednesday. That's the only way that Gita could be available for us. Um, Please take note of it. If not, I will remind you that next week we are meeting at the 14th, which is the Wednesday that week. And then Chris Huntingford will deliver two lessons on preparing agents to go into production. Much similar to what we have seen with use of data in the past. The problems that we dealt with low code specifically was that it wasn't really the technology itself that wasn't ready for the market, but how data was being used in low code. And it's a similar situation with AI. If your data is not ready for AI, then the technology cannot help you there. Okay, so Chris is going to hammer on it. It's not only good to build an agent, but how you get it ready for production. And then he's going to talk about red teaming and all that stuff. Nick Dolman takes over in February, and he will talk about Plan Designer. You'll notice in my presentation today, I'll talk about Plan Designer just a bit and the shift to a product that has a similar name but in another packaging. So we'll talk about it today, but Nick will dive deep into Plan Designer. Then April Dunham will showcase multi-agent orchestration. Eric Salve, M365 agents, and workflow scenarios. One of the things that I have noticed is that M365 is coming closer and closer to Power Platform in terms of the assets that it provides. I remember seeing a similar move with Dynamics 365 and then SharePoint, how the families got together after some time and it became the Power Platform. I'm seeing a shift there as well with Office 365, M365. A lot of the assets that it's putting out there for use are very similar to what's available in Power Platform. I would assume that eventually the two things will merge, not necessarily that Power Platform will overtake, Office 365, but things such as M365 Copilot, M365 App Builder, I think they will have a similar UI or they will converge with some of the app building, vibe coding features that are available or becoming available in Power Platform. Okay, so Eric will talk about that. Then a friend from Brazil, Renato Romão, will showcase some of the agents and the connection to Foundry models and Fabric as well. Scott Duro will dive deep into code apps. If you don't know Scott, he is an excellent presenter with loads of good content there. And usually his take is on the pro developer aspect of Power Platform, so that would be great for us to look at. Daniel Laskowitz will present on MCPs, and then the last session in this particular format will be delivered by Denis Naglikar. So he'll talk about agent first teams versus fusion teams. And then the closing of the program, it's going to be on the 26th. And we are intending to host that very last presentation from Seattle, Washington during the MVP Summit. So we may have a lot of good news when we present it from there, because that's usually when we get to learn about the new stuff. Hopefully, most of this news won't be on NDA and we'll be able to talk about it, but that's the intent, okay? These lessons are delivered on Thursdays at 12 p.m. my time, Mountain Time. That is 2 p.m. Eastern Time. I believe right now it's 6 p.m. in Brazil, South America, 7 p.m. in London, midnight 30 in India. I don't know if we have anybody from India that's watching live. If you are watching live, you are my hero. Okay, 6 a.m. in Australia, so on and so forth. Okay. Someone posted a question here asking me if the future sessions will start at this time. And yes, all the sessions will start at this time. So the first apology of the program is I am very sorry for the mishaps there with the calendar file. I use software to generate it, and apparently it didn't generate it well. It showed the right time for me, but for some of the other folks, it didn't. So we have corrected that. And if you want to download a calendar file, an ICS file that you can upload to your Outlook, and then it will give you reminders and such, you can download it here. And when you do, in the description of the event, you should have two links. One, that's the link for this lesson in Teams, so you can connect directly here. And the other link is back to this web page where you have access to everything else. The same link to the Teams channel is available here. So if for some reason you lose the calendar invite and you don't know what's happening, and you just get an alert from my from the WhatsApp group, you can always come back to this page, click here, and you'll be connected to this Teams channel. The second thing is we do have a WhatsApp group. I think there is about 60 of us, 55, I think, in the community. If you want to be part of it and then be able to exchange messages, we'll post content there as well. Some of the speakers will join us there. So if you have questions after the lesson, or if you have watched the lessons on demand on YouTube, you can post the questions in WhatsApp. We ask folks to not sell stuff on these channels, because then people get discouraged from creating through networking. But if you own a company and you are offering a job, you can use this channel for this type of offers. Okay, if you're looking for someone to freelance for you, you can use the WhatsApp channel for it. Okay, that's why it exists, for us to network, create opportunity, and help each other. The last link that I have available, it's the Zero to Hero YouTube channel. Every single video that we have recorded in the past of all the past mentorship programs is available in that channel. And the lessons that we record, including the one that we are recording today, will be made available in that channel, okay? We try to upload these lessons before 8 p.m. my time. I cannot promise that it's always going to be like that, because sometimes life happens and I have to do other things. But we'll upload it no later than the next week following the lesson. So today is Thursday. It's not going to delay. The upload will be there before next Monday. Okay, for sure. In the past, we were very consistent in uploading it the same day that the lessons took place, so that folks in other time zones could stay up to date in what was presented. Any questions, comments, concerns, anything you want to say? No? All right, everybody's pretty quiet.
We are just excited, Victor. That's all we can say.
Awesome.
I'm
awesome.
excited. Yeah.
We have 46 people live now, okay? And I see some smiley faces. I did this earlier today. You know, I asked you to open your camera, but we have a lot of people now. If you could do it now one more time before we dive into the lesson, I would be very grateful. Okay. All right. 30 seconds before we move on. All right. Any more? Any more of you? Wow, that's so cool. So cool. So many of you. So many of you. That's amazing. Awesome. I see Renato here as well. So many of you. So I'm gonna ask a favor, maybe to Renato. I see my friend Rafael. He's helping us organizing this program as well. If you can take a screenshot on the count of three, you can wave, go like this, handlebars, the victory sign, whatever. All right. Three, two, one. Awesome. Awesome. Hello, Daniel. Aloha. All right, I will kill my camera for now as we dive into the lesson so that I do not uh, create any type of lag, and we'll dive into this. Very good, very good. Cool, cool. All right, let me know if you can see my slide deck.
Not yet. Still at the website.
Still the
Ah,
website.
now we can see it now.
It's here now. Cool. All right. So this first lesson though, it's an intro to agentic AI. A lot of it will be concept. Um, I know we want to get our hands dirty and we want to learn stuff that will, excuse me, impact our work. But I'll talk about concept first, and then we'll dive into some of the hands-on towards the end of the presentation. All right. Very cool. You know who I am. There is a QR code if you want to connect online. I believe most of you have already. Let's move forward to the next one. So the agenda for today, we're going to talk about the announcement that Charles Lamanna did back in Power Platform Community Conference in Las Vegas, where he declared, I suppose, that low code is now dead, and we'll explain what he means by that. Then we'll dive into the Power Platform developer and maker new reality with this new shift in the AI world. Then we're going to do the intro to agentic AI, and hopefully, if we have time, we'll talk about this new reality when it comes to AI being a data consumer of our assets. Okay? Who's ready? Who's ready? Give me a thumbs up. Come on, come on. Show me that you're there. All right, let's go for it. So back in October, um, Charles Lamanna, while he was presenting, he was delivering his keynote at the PPCC event. He declared this. He said, "You know what? Low code, as we know, is dead, but it doesn't mean that the Power Platform is dead. Power Platform is now reborn, and the idea is that the tools that we were familiar with in within the Power Platform, more specifically how we build apps and automation, they would suffer change. And instead of going from, maybe a data model to start an app or getting a blank canvas to create apps, we would interact with AI to create some of the applications. So the first announcement that he made, and I'm not sure if you have followed, if not, you can put questions here on the corner, is that they are pushing some of the app creation um, UI from the make.power apps portals to a new site called vibe.powerapps.com. All right. And I don't know if many of you have tested it yet, but Vibe from the get go only gives you a prompt box. It doesn't give you anything else. All you get is a prompt box where you define what you want to build. And then the next experience will be interaction with multiple AI agents and you as the driver. All right. So the second screenshot here is the way that we used to build apps. We would either get a blank canvas and start creating a solution, or we would start this new app or automation from a data model. And by a show of hands, how many Canvas apps, how many makers do we have in this room here today? All right, we got quite a few folks. Lots of people. Yeah, so pay close attention to the shift in what Microsoft is proposing. I am not yet fully convinced that this is the way to go moving forward 100%, meaning that I don't think makers specifically will be very comfortable with the idea that in order to build an app now, I don't get my hands dirty in doing a little bit of drag and drop and changing the settings and configuring the app the way I want. Um, but I see the value of bringing AI agents into the mix. So again, I'm not fully convinced that our UI moving forward will only be a prompt box. Okay, and if you're curious about different companies doing similar things, look into Cursor as another low-code provider just for inspiration or maybe vision into what I believe um, Canvas Apps Designer will look like in the future. Microsoft didn't tell me that they're following Cursor's lead there, but I think the way that Cursor as a tool has built their um, UI makes more sense than just what Microsoft is pushing for with the Vibe website. Okay, so for Vibe, what happens is once you define the details of what you are building, you're going to get a series of different screens after. So, and this is a combination of a bunch of AI agents that are working behind the scene. Don't worry if I don't talk in detail about what the screens look like, what you should do. This is what we are going to dive into details throughout this program, throughout this mentorship. But the idea is you submit your uh, ideas for building an application, and the first thing that the UI will do is will parse this idea into three different areas. So you have an area that's called plan, another area that's called data, and the last group is apps. So the plan is a catalog that's similar to what a business analyst would do. Um, it will outline the roles that are involved in this particular implementation or solution, rather. It will outline the requirements per role, and then you are able to interact with AI to further enhance or to provide further detail to that particular solution. So I'm gonna open a plan that I built for a solution just to show you what the UI looks like, but I won't dive too deep into what it's doing. So here's the solution. I call it the COP EDU mobile hub. And the idea for the solution is I needed to create an app where, in case of a natural disaster, parents would be able to students would be able to move forward with their education. And the way it would work is either a parent does the homeschooling of their own child, or parents with more capacity, be it space in their house or and time, they would host classes in their homes. Okay, so that was the idea of the solution. So when I submit that idea into vibe.powerapps.com, it broke down the user roles for my solution, okay? And it also suggested a data model for my solution. Sorry if this is too small. All of the tables that it suggests it should use. And then finally, it created the shell of an application for me. All right. And unlike what we would have expected, it created a different type of application for me. This is called Code App, and it's based on React framework, and you can actually dive and look at what the app looks like in terms of the code for it. But I can also, instead of making changes directly there, I can click some of the buttons and I can edit that using this designer. All right. Now you can see that a lot is changing in terms of what we are used to. Okay. Is Canvas app done and dying? I don't have that answer. What I know is that for vibe.powerapps.com, Canvas apps is not an output of that particular solution creation story, right? Microsoft is pushing for code apps. If you go back to make.powerapps.com, you have a similar setup. There it's called Plan Designer. In their version of Plan Designer, or in that version of Plan Designer, you can create Canvas apps and model-driven apps, so on and so forth, as an output from this particular plan setup. Okay? Any questions so far? Comments, concerns, discouragement? If not, we'll continue. I'm not advocating for one app versus the other, but I'm just outlining what Microsoft is doing and the direction that they're going moving forward. Okay? All right, so let's talk about concepts, okay? In this particular UI, you notice that there are I almost had 5 people working here. There are 5, how can I put this into words? There are 5 parties, there you go, 5 parties working concurrently here to get the intended solution built. So the first one is you, in this case, myself, and then you have an agent called requirements agent, is the one that's cataloging all of the requirements and the user roles for this application. You have a data agent, you have a code agent, and you have a solution agent. I don't think for this plan I advanced it as much as I saw the solution agent, but this solution agent would show that besides the app that is suggesting it should be built, there are other components such as Power Automate flows, Power Pages website, so on and so forth, that could be built for this solution to be complete. Okay, so since Microsoft is using a lot of agents here to build this particular solution, I thought it would be nice if we started our program talking about agents. What are AI agents? All right, so let's look into that. So an AI agent is a software system that perceives its environment, makes decisions, and take actions in an automated form to achieve goals, often using large language models, LLMs for reasoning, planning context, multi-step tasks beyond simple content generation, acting like an independent digital worker that can use tools, learn, and adapt. Now, last year, or maybe a year and a half ago, we saw this rise in the use of Gen AI. And ChatGPT made it very popular. Any questions we had, any technical advice that we needed, we would rush to ChatGPT and ask questions, and it did a great job for us, and it still does. I see ChatGPT taking over the search engine. Is a lot of times we needed to go to Google, for example, or Stack Overflow to find answers for code. And then now we can use ChatGPT to help us in that regard. But agentic AI is very different from just Gen AI. Okay, it can leverage Gen AI in some of its process, but understanding and make the best use of agentic AI requires a little bit of thought and understanding of how things work in the back end. All right. So an agent, as the name suggests, is specifically an AI agent is um, it's a software system or function, could be attributed to a function or a system with multiple functions that can work independently. And it can work in schedule, it can work in conjunction with other agents to deliver functionality. Okay. So that is the first concept. Agentic AI then becomes the combination of different agents to deliver functionality. If an agent is able to access data, filter data, and aggregate data for results, we can work with multiple agents to do different things. Okay, so that is the idea here. And what we have seen, especially if you have used PVA in the past, that is Power Virtual Agents, is essentially that agentic AI has overtaken PVA. You know, back in the day, PVA was essentially the building of topics and potential pathways to deliver answers to users through a chatbot. Now we have chatbots supercharged with AI power, and more specifically, agents working in the back end to deliver results. Okay, so important to understand what it is and what it can do. What are the types of agents? You know, we interact with AI every day. Often we don't even realize that it is an AI agent that's helping us in the back end. You know, from personalized recommendations to self-driving systems, all of this intelligence is powered by AI, more specifically AI agents. And there are different types, and I believe it's important for us to understand. You know, agents, they are not just rule followers. You know, they can make decision on their own depending on what's feeding them. They can collaborate with other agents, and in some cases, they can learn and adapt their results based on the environment. Not all agents are built the same. So let's take a look into the different types of AI agents. Okay, the first one we're gonna look into, and notice that I'll be using analogy here as far as real world examples. It doesn't mean that some of the examples are using AI, but it's just for you to understand how some of these AI agents work. Okay, the simple reflex agents, they are the most fundamental AI type, agent type, and they will act based on the current environment. So there is no reference to memory of events in the past or consideration for future outcomes. They are fixed in terms of condition. The idea is if something happens or if this particular action happens, then do a particular provide a particular outcome. Okay, so think if an agent was a public restroom hand dryer, the trigger for that would be someone has approached their hands close to the hand dryer, and then it triggers the hot blow air back. Okay, or you are exiting a parking lot that doesn't charge anything. You know, the fact that you approached with your vehicle, you approached that toll booth scanner, it should open the gate and let you leave. So as the name infers to, it's a simple reflex. So an action happens and then a result follows it. Okay. Then you have the model-based reflex agent. This one is a little more it's a little smarter than a simple reflex. This one will take conditions in the particular environment also to determine what the next action is. So, an example for a model based reflex agent, you have a smart thermostat that adjusts heating based on the temperature history. So it's looking at memory to determine what happens next. Or those robot vacuums mapping the rooms. I don't know what that is. We do the work here manually at the house, so but I've seen some of those robots working. But what happens with those machines is that if there are obstacles in the room, it will map the ones that are the latest generation. It will keep track of where those obstacles were in the past, and it will try to avoid those things moving forward. Okay, you have the goal-based agent. This one is geared toward achieving a specific objective, um, and then it uses that particular goal to determine how it evaluates the action path to deliver it. Okay, so for a driving car, it will plan the routes while avoiding obstacles. Digital assistance as well, it will try to meet the intended result, which is to book a meeting, um, looking at the object rather than any other component there. Okay, so they're specifically useful where planning and foresight add value beyond simple reaction. You have the utility based agents. For these ones, though, it's a combination of goals and other metrics. So if we look at goal alone, you may not get the intended result for the agent itself. So here's an example: an airline system that adjusts pricing dynamically by looking at demand and revenue. So now you have two particular metrics to look into to determine what the goal is, or the goal becomes a combination of the two. And then another example is trading bots. You don't want to go always for the highest return, so you need to look at risks as well to protect yourself. So you are looking at two angles to determine what's the best outcome when using these particular agents. You have learning agents, agents that will adjust behavior based on feedback or in experience. So it's not just fixed on rules or predetermined models. So for these ones, you can look into an example, would be if you guys use Netflix or even Spotify, the way that it promotes to you music or movies you haven't watched is based on optimized behavior. So it learns about you before it compiles the suggestions. Okay. Uh, Also have care systems that will refine diagnosis based on patients' data. And then the last two um, agents that you see here are actually combination of the types that you have seen before. So the hierarchical agents are agents that are built using layers. So not all of them are used at the same time, but if a particular one is used, it can then invoke other agents that are built at a lower level for task execution, as an example. And then you have the multi-agent systems where you're essentially handing over um, data or commands between different agents. Okay, so those are the two other types. So I put together a table that outlines the agent type, um, and when they are their best use, examples, and some of the limitations here. This is going to be available in the deck for you to look at later on as well. You can download and play with it. Okay. I am not looking at the chat room, but I'll take a pause to see if there are questions at this moment. No questions. All right, we'll keep on going. So you may ask, Victor, why is it important for me to use? If you are solely looking at this class for the purpose of building apps, maybe this is not as important for you because you're leveraging agents that Microsoft has already built for you to build an app. You may leverage some of the Copilot in the app that you build, so your users or the users of your app can leverage some intelligence there as well. And maybe intelligence from Dynamics 365, so on and so forth. Those agents would be built for you. But the way that the industry is going, and I will attempt to quote, maybe not quote, but I'll paraphrase Satya in one of his keynotes. I believe it was in one of the Ignite events. He said this: what he predicted is in the future, apps will go away, and essentially people will interact with agents to get the job done. So instead of logging on and accessing an app to input data to a form, you'd be able to tell an agent to add that data for you in a system, or if you're consuming the data, instead of logging on to a Power BI dashboard to see it, you could ask a agent to go get the data, create a diagram for you, and present it on that particular chat window. So if you are a consumer of data or you are a builder of applications, maybe it's not important to know that there are different kinds of agents. But if you are going to transition your career from an app builder to more like an AI agent builder, and could be through Copilot Studio or any other tool, it becomes then very important for you these types and how to properly um, create your own agent. And I'll show you a screenshot. Hopefully the definition is good enough for you to see. If not, the same content that I am going to talk about is going to be presented in depth by other presenters in this program. But this is the landing page for, come on, for Copilot Studio. And in here, when you create um, an agent, when you start to create an agent, Copilot Studio will kind of give you some suggestions of what you can build. You can use some of this knowledge sources or use this agent templates to create your own. You can create an agent that's going to navigate across your organization and list out names of employees, their current job titles, phone numbers, so on and so forth. But it starts this way. One of the things that I don't think I have a good screenshot for, but I attempted to get, is the list of different knowledge sources that you can include into your agent or the agent that you are building. So this is where it becomes important to understand what kind of agent I am leveraging or kinds of agents that I am leveraging to build my own. Okay, Microsoft has made available a number of different connectors as knowledge source for your agents. Um, I think it is in the magnitude of 400 or 500, if I'm not mistaken. And on top of that, you have different things called MCPs and so on and so forth. So when you build your agent, you need to have understanding of what you are connecting and how those sources interact with your own, with the agent that you are building. So let me step back one more time here. Suppose that you need to create an agent for scheduling meetings with your CEOs in your company, and you're going to use Copilot Studio for that. Okay. Um, so the agent from the get go, you probably are going to connect with Microsoft Graph or that Teams Explorer template there so that you have visibility into your organization, who works there, who are the C-level team, who are the members of that team. And then you might want to connect to another source, knowledge source to find out their availability, so access to their calendar to know who is available and who is not available. And then you may have other things to throw into the mix. You know, are you an employee? What level in the chain are you? Can you book meetings with this person? So on and so forth. So all of this data may be available through the use of the connectors, but how you interact with it and then how you play with other types of agents may become important to bring into the conversation. Okay. Um, let's talk a little bit about knowledge sources as we explore creation of agents in GitHub Copilot. Um, as I mentioned, there are multiple sources that you can bring into GitHub Copilot to be used into the building or the making of your agent. Um, but they may present challenges when it comes to security. All right. Again, in my example, it's I'm building an agent to make scheduling meetings with my C-level members easier. And maybe in the same agent, I wanted to throw in information about HR. You know, when booking a meeting with the CEO, these are the things that you need to be mindful of when you get into the meeting, so on and so forth. And let's suppose that that information is part of a bunch of documents that I have available in SharePoint. Okay. The connector that Microsoft offers is great. It allows you to tap into document libraries and you can bring those assets into the conversation there. But guess what? Your information is as good as you have built it in your data sources. Okay, so if the files you're going to use are not doesn't if they don't contain enough information about the process you're trying to expose through an agent, then your agent is not going to build that intelligence for you. And then you have another concern around have to be concerned around security as well. What are the other documents that are part of that document library? Am I only exposing safe HR files, or am I also exposing that Excel file that lists out the salaries of everybody who works on the company? It may be funny, but I've heard of scenarios recently about companies who expose their whole salary list per employee through an agent. So we got to be careful on how we use it. So when you select the knowledge source, Microsoft will make a bunch of things available, but it doesn't mean that it should be the alternative that you use. Okay. If you use files for building a Copilot agent, notice that it goes into that particular index as unstructured knowledge. So whatever you put there is going to become knowledge that your Copilot is going to use. And for good or bad, it assumes that you have already vetted that information. Okay. If you're using enterprise systems, if you are connecting with Dataverse for your knowledge sources, again, the selection of the data or the tables that you're going to expose and the columns that you're going to expose is entirely up to you. If there is information there that shouldn't be exposed and you select it, again, it becomes knowledge that's going to be consumed by the agent. and the context of that conversation is based on the connection that you have established between Copilot Studio and the source itself. The most concerning one of them all in terms of enterprise systems is Dataverse, because it's going to suck in that data and index the data before it's presented to the user to a conversation. Um, Other systems, other connectors, such as connector to Salesforce, it will submit a query to those systems before it provides the answer. So you are a little safer there because the information is not indexed. Okay. Any questions, comments, shouts of joy and excitement for this particular news? All right, let's move forward. Okay. So the last part I'm going to address in today's presentation before we turn into like Q&A is the use of MCP. Again, all of the subjects that I spoke about today will be dealt with in depth as we go into the lessons, specific lessons. So let's talk about MCP. Now, we said that, Copilot Studio provides these amazing connectors to a number of different sources, which is great. But if you want to add a level of security to your agents as you build it, I would strongly advise you to use MCP as the knowledge sources. Okay, MCP will offer that layer of context to the conversation, and also it will limit what can be done based in context. So, if I connect a Dataverse environment as a system, a sysadmin, I am able to see everything. I'm able to execute actions. I'm able to create tables, so on and so forth. Not to say that your agent should be able to do all this, but if I connect it using MCP, then the security will be driven by the user that's kept in context there. So if a user has less or lower level of access to information, then you're already protecting what kind of information is exposed in the conversations or actions that that particular um, agent or your agent is supposed to do. Okay. And there is a number of MCPs that are available as sources. You have lots in Copilot Studio nowadays. You have even, Box MCP server. You have the Dataverse one. There's one for forms. So you can actually interact with a Canvas app through the MCP for Canvas through an agent if you so desire. Okay. And I hope, there is a presentation, the title of the presentation from Daniel is called MCP Without Borders. I think he'll talk about the use of MCPs in Copilot Studio, and then the use of MC of the and yeah, of your agents outside of this particular stack. So that is the idea of that particular presentation. Okay. So the next part of this is a quick demo. I'm gonna do one demo on each aspect that or topic that I talked about today. Let's start outside of the Microsoft stack. Okay. So what we are going to look into is, okay, Victor, and maybe the idea of Agentic AI makes sense to me, but I'm very familiar with Gen AI. I've used ChatGPT. Can you show me something that can help me kind of make an association between the two? All right, so let's do this. Let's go to ChatGPT, okay? And what I will do is I'll throw a prompt here which is compile list of updates from Power Pages influencers and also the Microsoft Power Pages announcement page. Okay, so I will run this and we'll get the results that we expect. All right, so this is the result that I see. It has compiled those updates for me alongside with links. Okay, I can run this prompt every day or once a week to stay up to date in what's happening with Power Pages and know stay in the loop, and even use this list to create my own materials as I post stuff on LinkedIn. But it could also create an agent that does this for me every week and maybe sends me an email so that I don't have to come to ChatGPT to get the results. Okay, so Gen AI is giving me this, it's generated all this content for me. Now I'm going to transition to Agentic AI. So how do we do that in ChatGPT? So ChatGPT has a function called agent mode. I can activate it, do a similar prompt. But for this one, I said, send me a curated list of news every Monday morning at 6 a.m. Mountain Time. So I'm going to run this guy. And you notice that it acts a little bit differently, but the result's similar. And thanks for the guys who provided the definition for MCP. I'm sorry. Yeah, Model Context Protocol. All right, so my agent is working here. The first thing it's doing is it's looking at those sources, and it's opening the browser here to get me the details. So let's give it a minute. While it's doing that, I am going to prepare for my next demo. Let's move this out of the way. All right, let's go back. The agent's working hard. It's still doing some work there. Let's give it some time. Now it's really cool how it is telling you what it's actually doing. Okay, while it's working, if any of you has questions, we'll take some questions while our agent is working. You can unmute yourself or raise your hand or post a question here in the chat. We'll try to take some questions while our agent is doing the job. Anyone? Okay, I'll dive a little deeper on the MCP thing. The way you can think of MCP, think about I think a good analogy would be that MCP are almost like APIs for agents. You can create automation in AI. You can create things on your own AI agents, and then you can envelop some of that intelligence in MCP, and then that will drive how that particular um, protocol responds when it's engaged. So if you think about Dataverse, the MCP for Dataverse allows you to run a command that says list tables. Then it understands that that is a particular action that can be triggered against the MCP. It will try to execute that action and then realize, okay, the user is not yet signed on in this particular conversation. So it will require you to sign in, provide your creds in a secure format. And then once you are authenticated, it will go ahead and perform that particular action against your environment. So now I brought context to the conversation that I'm engaging with a client agent, if you will. So I hope that answered the question. We'll show an example here shortly. Yeah, this is taking a while. I'm going to switch to a second demo and then come back to this one because I guess it's going to take a while before all of this stuff is done. Okay, so the next example is essentially in the use of MCP. So I created, or I configured rather, an MCP for a Dataverse environment that I use. So I'll start this server, and I have one also for DevOps, Azure DevOps. So let's wait for it to state that it's running. In VS Code, when we activate it, it will connect and then it will show the number of tools that are available for a particular MCP. So it's saying that for Dataverse, we have 77 tools. For the DevOps one, actually that was DevOps. For Dataverse, where's my output? I think it's about 15 for Dataverse. But where they play a role is essentially when we go to, where is my GitHub Copilot? When we start to interact with GitHub Copilot, which is an agent. Did I do this, Victor? Sorry, I closed the chat. I wanted my chat back. Oh, right here, open chat. Okay, so when I start to engage with my chat, I can do things like list tables. And then GitHub Copilot will infer to what MCPs have those similar actions. And in here, it should ask me to sign in, unless it capped my creds into context. If not, it's gonna ask me to sign in. I think it capped into context from the last time I signed on. But you see, it's listing the core tables. It's listing the custom tables that I have in my environment, and I can do things like describe table ideas case. And I could use natural language for that as well, but I'm calling the MCP action and just to be safe. You see, it went into the backend, got the metadata for my table, and described it here. And this becomes very handy because I can do things like show me an example of a Dataverse web API call listing out all cases in table ideas case. Presented using Bootstrap table. So let's see what it does. I will click to see the example it's suggesting. And more importantly, let's take a look at the Dataverse web API command. So if this was my required job for the day or task for the day, it's almost done for me, right? So I could play with it a little bit. One other thing that we can do, I mean, that was the example with the Dataverse MCP. We can run the same for the DevOps in my projects. So the command is list work items. Let's see if this one works. And sorry for being 3 minutes over time. I will click to allow, and it's going to ask me for my creds. Just so you know, another screen popped up here on the side for me to sign in. Gonna move out of there for my password. And okay, auth code successfully acquired. I can now close this window. And I'm going back to see the results. So I have 12 work items in different projects. It listed out the projects and the tasks that I needed to do. I can say something like, I am working on task number 97 in project Power Pages Plus. Please write the initial code based on what is being requested. Now, I don't even know what my task is on this dashboard thing, but I don't want to bother going all the way to Azure DevOps to understand what it is. I could ask it to just give me a description of what the job is, but I'm going to ask AI to create the initial code stub for me. And a lot of times it is the whole task already being done by AI for me. Let's wait for the result. And do we think that the ChatGPT agent is finished? Yeah, I think it's finished, but let's see this files, the generated file here first. All right, so it created a dashboard chart for me. File already exists. Yeah, I will allow it to remove. Let's just see the end result of this experience. For context though, the task is creating a dashboard within Power Pages. So the command syntax is slightly different than what we would expect for Dataverse, JavaScript stuff. So it's doing all the work, having that kept into context. So hopefully this won't be long. And again, apologies for going over time here. This is working hard. Okay, where's my dashboard? Let me pop open this file. Yeah, it added a description of what it did. So you can always revise using natural language, or if you like to revise using looking at the code, you can. So a lot of CSS. Of course, I could parse it, put it in another file for my Power Pages setup. But yeah, lots of JavaScript. It added the library for charts, jQuery chart, and a little bit of mapping between choice fields in Dataverse. And I have a fetch case, so I'm reading all of the cases in my case table, and then it's aggregating the cases for my result set. Cases, active cases in progress, on hold, resolved, so on and so forth. Alrighty, let's jump back to our ChatGPT to see how it did with our agent. All right, so yeah, it created the newsletter entry for me. There are some dates there, new information. I really like this format. There's the date, what happened, and the source and links for me to dive into. And then the last thing that it should ask was for me to configure email sending, email capabilities. So for my environment, though, I don't have that feature available. But should you have it with your Chat GPT, it would set up the reminder for you um, to see that. Okay. So it's the agent going out there, getting a lot of job done. That's one agent. And then another agent would be in charge of scheduling this, sending of this particular work to you. Okay. And the demo that I did, you have GitHub Copilot here as the agent that's the client agent that's connecting a bunch of different parts. Um, you have it connected to, I think it's using OpenAI. What is the model that's using? Oh yeah, it's Auto. But I use Claude a lot of times, and I use GPT-5 Mini when I want quick responses. Sorry, Codex when I want fast responses for my code for LLM. But I brought two MCPs into the conversation, and depending on what you're working on, maybe you want to add the Microsoft Learn MCP to get some of the information like documentation from Microsoft, or if you're writing SQL Server stuff and there is a particular way that you should write, and if there is an MCP for those notations, whatever the case may be, you can bring those into the conversations, and then your results will be a lot better because you're referencing things in context instead of just what the LLMs think they should offer to you as a particular answer. Okay. All right, so this is the end of our first lesson today, and I know I went over time